Well, then, about 100 years ago, they began to realize that there was a fourth way in which evolution works. So they had natural selection as a starting point, and then they discovered chromosomes and began to understand there was this recombination of genes through chromosomes. And then they began to get an understanding also of DNA and what you call genetics. And with that understanding, they began to understand that there were such things as mutations, mistakes in the sequence of genes. Then they started to realize, well, I think there's another kind of way in which evolution works that we weren't thinking of before, and that was gene flow. So about 100 years ago or so, they started to realize that there was reshuffling of genes between populations more different. That's as opposed to recombination. So within a species, within a subspecies, we're that closely related. Well, in ordinary sexual reproduction, we recombine through our chromosomes and all. Well, but that was a population of very closely related animals within a species, subspecies even. But they started to realize, well, what if it's a reshuffling of genes between things more different, living things more different. So they saw this with plants, and then they began to see it also with animals and understood that sometimes you get a hybrid. So think of a hybrid then. Well, so they're not of the same subspecies, maybe not even quite the same species. How do you split a species from another species? Well, it's not as clear as you might think. Well, it seems that populations more different sometimes succeed in reshuffling genes too. So this doesn't usually work. It's infrequent, but there are times when genes from animals more different succeed in reshuffling as opposed to animals of the same subspecies. This is through sexual reproduction, or it can even be through other kinds of ways. So gene flow then is infrequent, but because it happens between animals more different, then it can bring on big changes. So this is another way they realized for evolution to come into play. So kind of the flip side, sort of the logical flip side of recombination, gene flow, reshuffling of genes within a population, within a subspecies, as opposed to reshuffling of genes within apart from populations more different across subspecies, even across species. They started to observe that, yes, sure enough, that does sometimes occur.